Paladins did such low damage.
Play a red paladin in vanilla WoW, and if you're not fighting,
let's watch this one.
You only have one damaging ability until the target goes below 20% health anyway, in which case you'll gain access to a second damaging
Hammer of Wrath.
The way red paladins do most of their damage is through their seal system, which buffs their auto attacks and does different things depending if you consume it with your judgment ability, which is their only damaging move, which requires you to have a seal active in order for it to work. So basically, a red paladin's DPS revolves around activating a seal, using judgment to consume that seal to do its unique effect, and then reapplying another seal to buff your auto attack damage while you wait for judgment to come off cooldown. And that's basically how red paladins played. They just waited around for judgment to come off cooldown, as they couldn't really do anything else damage-wise, unless they also wanted to use their AoE ability on single target, or if they were fighting undead, in which case they gain access to two new abilities called Exorcism and Holy Wrath. Now, this may surprise you to hear, but this version of the Ret Paladin wasn't added to the game until 2 weeks before the game went live. So basically, completely untested and added in at the last second. Because during the beta, Ret Paladins had a little bit more to do than just activate a seal and use Judgment. Ret Paladins had two more damaging abilities called Crusader Strike and Holy Strike. Holy Strike was basically the Paladin version of the warrior ability Heroic Strike, where it would turn your next weapon swing into a harder hitting attack. But Holy Strike turned all that damage into pure holy damage, which meant it bypassed armor and was actually...
So this is basically, this video is pretty much admitting that Ret Paladins had abilities, but they were all removed. And this is kind of what everybody has assumed. But now that this video is here, we all just know that it's going to happen.
Really good. And Crusader Strike is an ability Paladins have in the live version of the game, and they basically have had the ability ever since it was given back to them at the beginning of the Burning Crusade. And what Crusader Strike did in WoW's beta was it would do instant damage and then put a debuff on the target, which would increase the holy damage they took for the next 30 seconds. And this debuff would stack up to 5 times. And Crusader Strike did not have a cooldown. So Paladins actually had a spammable damaging move, as well as a decent holy damage ability on a 10-second cooldown with Holy Strike, which would hit harder the more stacks of Crusader Strike you had up on the target. And this version of the Paladin in the beta was actually pretty good, and did decent damage, unlike how a baseline Ret Paladin played in Classic WoW, where they were one of the lowest, as well as a decent holy damage ability on a 10-second cooldown with Holy Strike, which would hit harder the more stacks of Crusader Strike you had up on the target. And this version of the Paladin in the beta was actually pretty good.
Actually pretty good.
Damage, unlike how a baseline Ret Paladin played in Classic WoW, where they were one of the lowest DPS classes in the game. So, why did Blizzard remove Crusader Strike and Holy Strike, and then basically give them nothing to replace their only damaging abilities?
Too bad.
Well, there are some theories and rumors about this, and I plan on going over both of them. First up, mechanically speaking, these two abilities were removed from the game because they just made the Paladin go incredibly quickly. Both Crusader Strike and Holy Strike cost mana to use. And caster classes in vanilla WoW had to worry about their mana.
Yeah, they never got any mana back. That's a good point.
About which abilities they could spam before running out of mana. And while Paladins did good damage with these two abilities, having a spammable Crusader Strike caused them to run out of mana a little bit too quickly, and the vanilla WoW class design was absolutely not about making the mana cost lower, as there were a couple of other classes in the game who were unviable because they also had so much mana problems. So, many people theorize the reason they converted Ret Paladins into the auto attack version they got for vanilla WoW was a band-aid way of solving the mana issue that Crusader Strike brought up. If the Paladin only needs to use one ability every 8 seconds in order to do damage, then they don't have to worry about mana as much for their DPS. Regardless of the fact that this promoted a style of gameplay which wasn't as fun as what Crusader Strike and Holy Strike might have brought about.
I don't agree with that. I actually think that the Ret Paladin vanilla gameplay was really good. The thing is, it just matters like what do you really, what is valuable to you? Because to me personally, what I thought was awesome was being able to just sit there and do nothing. So I sit there, I do nothing, And you're just auto-attacking the whole time. And that gives you time to look at the boss's loot, see what's going to drop, see what you're going to be able to roll on. Go on to Twitter, look at Twitter, tweet out, man, I'm excited to raid today. This is awesome. You know, you're watching porn, and the only thing you really need to do is refresh one button. And the best part about a rep paladin, right, is at the very, it's same as an arms warrior back in Burning Crusade. The expectations were so low, you actually didn't even need to be good at your class. You could literally not even play. And as long as you were there, people, it's like, what really is the difference between 300 and 350 DPS? I mean, whenever you really break it down, what is the difference between those two things? No one. No one cares. It doesn't really matter.
And there was also the
DPS,
debuff limit. Vanilla WoW only had an 8 debuff slot limit, which was later increased to 16, which is what we have at the start of Classic WoW. And if the Paladin's main damaging ability, Crusader Strike, required them to take up one of these debuff slots, then Paladins wouldn't be able to use their main damaging ability in raids anyway, and they'd be stuck with only Holy Strike every 10 seconds. Because in beta, when Paladins had both Crusader Strike and Holy Strike, Judgment and Seals didn't really exist in the way they did in Vanilla WoW. Beta Judgment was literally just Holy Wrath.
That's all Paladin judgments, by the way. Beta judgments.
And when they changed the Paladin class to how it eventually worked in Vanilla WoW, they changed Judgment into the 8-second cooldown ability, which consumed seals in order to do damage. And then they just added in Holy Wrath, which had Judgment's old effect. And the seal system was completely added to the game along with this Judgment change, where the seal system in Vanilla WoW requires you to activate a short-term buff on yourself, which is usually about 30 seconds, and then you consume that 30-second buff with your Judgment in order to do damage, and other various effects. And while that 30-second buff is on you, it gives you an auto-attack buff, which does various things depending on which seal you're using. And the things in Beta WoW, which were called seals, were just changed into the blessings, which is kind of confusing to explain in this video, but to make it as simple as possible, they completely created the seal mechanic from scratch at the start of Vanilla WoW, and then for some reason gave it a naming convention after another set of abilities that Paladins already had, that functions nothing like how the seal mechanic works. Anyways, since they didn't have the seal and judgment mechanic alongside Crusader Strike and Holy Strike, they never really got to test how that would function for the class, allowing them to have 3 damaging abilities that they would then use regularly along with the auto attack buff.
It wasn't really until Wrath that Rep Paladins were good. In Burning Crusade, they were decent, but they were still kind of towards like the bottom middle of the pack. And they gave buffs though, which made Rep Paladins good. And yeah, in Wrath, that's whenever they were actually really good. I remember in fucking in ICC, they were insane. But Elf Rets were good. They were not good compared to other classes. Like they were not good as Fury Warrior, as a Shadowbolt Warlock, or a Hunter. Like yes, of course that there were other classes that Rets did outperform, like Arms Warriors. Yes, but Rets were nowhere near the top. They were not even remotely close, especially compared to some of the high performers like Rogues. Like no, they were nowhere close.
From seals. Considering that system would still have the mana problems and the debuff slot limit problem, I can see why they decided to simplify things for themselves and just give them the auto attack thing instead, so that Paladins could focus on being buff bots. You see, Paladin buffs were really good, but they only lasted for 5 minutes, and you can only place one on a person at a time. So having a Paladin in your raid meant everyone else in your raid could do more damage and healing, but that also meant the Paladins spent most of their global cooldowns just buffing everyone else, making them one of the only pure support classes to exist in the game, which could be another big reason why they were changed to focus on auto attacks instead of having an active rotation with Crusader Strike, because they wanted the Paladin to use those
focusing on auto attacks
instead of using them on
how do you focus on auto attacks?
Of course, the seal mechanic wasn't a huge success either, as it was all but removed after Vanilla WoW, since while it did have a few fans, it wasn't very good. And I'm sure everyone probably would have liked it more if it just did a little bit more damage, or, you know, was a little bit more involved than having to press 2 buttons every 8 seconds.
Yeah, maybe.
So if you go back and watch any beta footage of World of Warcraft that has Paladins in it, you can actually see Crusader Strike on the debuff bar of the video I'm showing right now.
Oh, wow.
As a shaman is going out and fighting a paladin in the open world.
Holy shit.
And you can see the Crusader Strike debuff on him as he's killing the higher level paladin.
That's crazy.
But Vanilla WoW was already taking a long time to come out. It was in development for 5 years
Holy
before they
shit.
launched. So they started just rushing things towards the end. But it's kind of a wonder why they decided to make such a drastic change to the paladin class 2 weeks before the game launched, which kind of segues into this next section of the video. Now, outside of the mechanical reasons that people theorize, these aren't, confirmed in any way, about why they removed Crusader Strike and Holy Strike, there's also the rumors of 2 game developers joining around the same time the seal system was added. 2 famous EverQuest players named Furor and Tiggle joined the WoW development team at around the time Paladins
so
got
they
this
ruined
drastic
Ret
change
Paladins
to their
right
damage
there.
and rotation. And the change to the
They
Paladin
actually just
class
ruined
was
them.
so last second that even in the official Vanilla WoW guide,
Yep.
which was sold in stores, they featured the Paladin old class systems, including Crusader Strike, Holy Strike, and calling their blessings seals.
Wait a sec. Let me see. Where's my book? Do I have my book anywhere? I want to see if it's in my book. Where the hell is it? Fuck, man. I don't even know what the hell is going on here. Yeah, shit, I don't see one. Fuck, I'll have to look around, and like maybe that's the case with mine. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see it.
And you see, these 2 players were infamous for absolutely hating hybrid classes.
So Jeff
to the point
ruined
where
it.
they would stage protests in game whenever they found out a hybrid class was doing anything except being a buff bot.
So Tiggle, that's Jeff, okay? Tiggle referred to Paladins as very much a support class. He is quoted as saying, "When I'm playing a shaman, I hate Paladins." See that? No current or former CM ever played Paladin to level 60. The highest level Paladin of a community manager was 51. That makes sense. Furrow responded by pre-release Paladin questions on the Fires of Haven Guild forum by becoming enraged and verbally abusive. Tiggle expressed disdain for hybrid classes in some pre-release interviews. Paladins were not mentioned explicitly, but when mentioned why the Death Knight Necromancer classes were scrapped, he replied that Blizzard wanted to keep hybrids at a minimum. So they fucking hate him. They fucking hate him.
Or something like that. They just really didn't like the fact that a hybrid class could do as much damage as a pure DPS class, and they were well known for wanting hybrid classes to basically be terrible as a tax for being able to do a whole bunch of different things, which would make sense why Paladins lost their fun rotation as soon as they joined and were given the infamous seal system for Vanilla WoW. Although I'd call these just rumors instead of what actually happened, because there isn't confirmation this is why it happened. And in fact, Ghostcrawler is largely credited with changing Paladins to how they were in Vanilla WoW. And Ghostcrawler is also the person who wanted hybrid classes to perform just as well as pure DPS classes.
That's never gonna work.
So what probably
that never
happened
would work.
was Ghostcrawler just wanted to try out this change with the Paladins and see how it worked. Saw that it failed in Vanilla WoW, and then changed his philosophy going forward to try to push all classes to basically being equal. So, all that being said, there's not too much credit to the Furor or Tiggle changing Vanilla WoW Paladins into a garbage spec.
So it's no
Although this
longer a
wouldn't be a video
conspiracy.
about beta Ret Paladins without mentioning this very famous rumor.
Okay.
I just couldn't find any confirmation for any of these rumors besides lots of speculations on forums and stuff.
Of course.
Which is usually the case for very famous WoW rumors. So, there you have it. The reason Paladins
Nobody
only
actually
had
knows what
one
the fuck is
damaging
going
ability
on. That's basically
was
what's
because
going
it was
on.
given to them at the last second without any kind of testing like all the other classes got, as well as a whole bunch of rumors and theories as to why they made this decision in the first place. After Vanilla WoW, Blizzard changed Paladins to no longer be buff bots. They allowed them to actually tank, and gave them competitive DPS. Arguably, it was much better than it was in Vanilla WoW, though.
See if I can load back in here. I'm at character select screen. All right, we got a loading screen, boys. Let's see how this is gonna work. All right, we're back online. Everybody load back in, log back in. Let's go. Log back in.